Hey guys, I just wanted to pop in and make a video real quick talking to you a little bit about your analysis essays. If you haven't been on Moodle, or if you haven't checked it out in the gradebook, when you turned in your outlines, I reviewed those on yesterday. If you turned it in, you got a 100. If it was done completely and done well, you maybe also got a 70, an 80, or a 90, depending on the quality of your work. But in reviewing those outlines, what I did notice is that a lot of us are really lost about what this paper is supposed to be. So I really wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about what the assignment is and how it is that you can be successful. Before I get into all of that, though, I do want to say that initially your paper was going to be due on this Sunday coming up, but because of the challenges that I noticed with simply reviewing the outlines, that's not a real practical choice, right? So what I'd like to do instead is to have your papers due next Sunday, right? So not this Sunday coming up, but next Sunday is when your papers are going to be due. Instead, this Sunday, what I like for you to do is to turn in a draft. Now, this draft does need to be a substantial draft. I need you to turn in an outline, and that outline should be updated to reflect the changes that you're going to make based on the feedback that I gave you on your previously submitted outline. And it also needs to include at least 3 paragraphs: introduction, a description paragraph, and an analysis paragraph. So let's talk about what this assignment is. In a nutshell, what I'm asking you to do is to choose an advertisement or 2, depending on whatever it is that you're writing about. Now, in choosing that advertisement, it could be a commercial ad that you see on television, on YouTube, or whatever, on a website, or it can be a print ad. You could literally Google print advertisements and come up with something, or you might even Google controversial print ads. So whatever it is that you are looking for, find an advertisement. Your goal is not to talk about the history of the company, not to talk about the product. Your goal is to talk about and discuss the effectiveness of the advertisement. Let me give you an example. Relatively recently, Nike put out an advertisement where it's just like a face shot of Colin Kaepernick, and it had, the caption said something like, "Stand for something or you'll fall for anything." I might be paraphrasing, but you get my point. So if I were going to write about that advertisement that is just a face shot or headshot of Colin Kaepernick and those words, "Just do it," and the caption that I just mentioned, then what I might do is create a thesis statement. Now, first, your thesis statement needs to tell us whether or not this advertisement is effective. So you might say something like, in the recent Nike advertisement using Colin Kaepernick, the company effectively presents a motivational message for the consumers. All right? So we see what we did there. We mentioned the ad. We talked about the image in the advertisement, and we made a point. The point is that the company effectively used motivation to encourage the consumers to buy Nike products. Okay? So that's what the goal is. Once you establish that as your thesis statement goal, what you're doing from there is describing the ad. You want to write with such a level of detail, it's like the person who's reading your paper has not and cannot see the advertisement for him or herself. So you're writing with a level of detail, and then you're analyzing. To analyze means to elaborate in a way that you're talking about what works well and what doesn't. So what I mentioned to several of you in reviewing your outlines that I wanted you to check out or reread. I'm assuming that you're reading everything that's on Moodle. If you are not, please do. That's imperative, right? Especially because you don't have me face to face to tell you what it is that I need you to know. So I just have to trust that you're reading the material that I place on Moodle for you. So read it all of the samples, all of the things, read them. All right, so if we look at this sample essay, "The Fashion Industry Free to Be an Individual," I want to read not the whole thing, but there are some things I do want to point out about the structure and organization of this essay. Now, this essay, I'm going to click over here really quickly, is analyzing these 2 ads, and this is on Moodle for you as well. So these are 2 advertisements for shoes. One is for Clark's shoes, and this is the image that the writer is going to be talking about. That's the advertisement for those shoes, quite literally. And then the second advertisement is for Sorel boots, and this is the advertisement. So these are the print advertisements that this writer is working with, okay? So we got that in our mind. That's what she's writing about. Now let's look back at what she writes. Your introduction should not start with, I am going to, the pictures or the ads or the commercial that I chose is this. That's a very elementary style of writing. You want to make sure that your writing is at a collegiate level. You don't want to abandon the things that you've already learned. Hook your reader in a way that is designed to engage the person with whatever it is that you're talking about. Elaborate and then narrow down with your thesis statement. So this writer is talking about how those advertisements are effective because they encourage young women to do whatever it is that they want to do. They encourage young women to be individuals, whether that means blowing a horn or it means shooting a shotgun while wearing a formal dress and some boots. So let's look at this introduction. I'm going to point a couple of things out, and then I'm going to show you a couple other things, and we'll be done for today, or we're not face-to-face, right? But here, notice at the beginning, the introduction, she says, as young women, we have always been told through the medium of advertisement that we must use certain products to make ourselves beautiful. In decades, ads for things like soap, or for decades, ads for things like soap, makeup, and mouthwash have established a sort of misplaced control over our lives, telling us what will make us attractive and what will not. That's what the writer uses to lead in. She's providing some context, some background. For generations, the media, advertisements have tried to teach women what they need to do in order to be beautiful. So now she goes into talking about the specifics of her ad. She says, recently, however, a new generation of advertisement has emerged in the fashion industry, one that cleverly equates the product shown in the ad with the quest for confident individuality. Then she gets into her thesis statement. Ads such as the two for Clarks and Sorrell discussed below encourage us to break free from the standard beauty mold and be ourselves. Using mostly imagery, they remind us that being unique is the true origin of beauty. I know it's a long sentence, but it's properly punctuated so it's not a run-on, but your thesis statements need to have three things. You need to mention the ad, you need to mention your point or points of analysis, and you need to make a point. Here she mentions the ads, Clarks and Sorrell. Her points of analysis, what is it that she's looking at? Imagery, right? You only have pictures. If it's a commercial such as a Progressive auto insurance commercial, they might use flow, they might use a character. So here she's talking about imagery. In order to do what? What's her point? These ads effectively teach women to break the beauty mold and be themselves. Moving on, in terms of organizing, the first paragraph, she just describes the first ad. I'm not going to read through this, but do read it. Notice how long, excuse me, there's a blank page in here, but how long that paragraph is. She describes every single detail about that girl standing on a rock blowing a horn. It's because you want to describe with such a level of detail. It's because the reader can't see the ad, right? Now, notice, however, the analysis paragraph is significantly shorter because what you're doing there is taking all of what you've described and giving it some value. So I will read here. She says, Clarks has taken what looks like your average high school student and dressed her in an outfit that speaks to her own distinctive characters and talents. The image sparks the idea that her beauty comes from an internal base of secure self-confidence and moves outward to infuse her physical appearance and sense of style. The ad urges us, consumers, to celebrate individuality with the right look. Using an image alone, Clarks advertises its products with the simple promise that they will support you in doing what you love and keep you original. So that's what she says works well about this advertisement. Now then, she goes on, the next paragraph is talking about the second ad. She describes it, pardon the blank page, describes it in great detail, and then she has a shorter paragraph where she's analyzing it, and then you have a conclusion where she's putting it all together. Now, because I don't want this video to be terribly long, I don't want to read the entire thing to you, but please, please, please do read it so that you know what I'm talking about. The other thing I want to show you is this handout. If you haven't looked at it on Moodle, it's entitled Organizing and Analysis Essay. Literally, you can take what you're writing about, copy it and paste it into this, or copy this and paste it on a separate Word document and create your outline. Several of you ran into problems not using Roman numerals, not using capital letters. You just gave me a list. It might have been a bulleted list. It might not have even been that, but you want to make sure that you do follow the guidelines for creating an outline. So notice what I give you is a couple of blank templates, and then I give you examples. So if you are choosing two texts, right, we're going to call that a comparative analysis. So if you're choosing two ads, so you can do exactly what the sample essay just did. Describe, analyze the first ad, describe, analyze the second ad. What you could also do is a point-by-point analysis where you make 2 to 3 points about each ad and you describe and analyze them together. I'll be honest with you, this is the easiest way. Right? So I'm going to encourage you to use that one. Now, if you're using just one advertisement, we're going to call that a close ad or a close analysis. Then you have a paragraph where you describe and a paragraph where you analyze. Now, if these paragraphs get to be entirely too long, then break them up. So say you're describing the character, the story, or the beginning, middle, and end of a commercial, make that 3 different paragraphs. Now, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, I give you examples. Use the examples, okay? So we have the thesis statement using Hardee's and Burger King. I say, the overly sexualized manner in which Hardee's presents its new thick burger and Burger King presents its new extra long cheeseburger sadly follows the ongoing trend of objectifying women in order to sell a product. So the argument here is that these two companies do a bad thing. They sadly follow this trend of treating women like objects in order to sell something, in this case, hamburgers, right? So that's the argument. And so then you move in, describing the Hardee's ad, notice all the different ideas that describe it, analyzing the Hardee's ad. Notice the analysis is different from the description. Think about it this way. Description is fact, analysis is opinion. Fact, literally what you see. Opinion, what do you think about what you see? What I thought about that Hardee's ad when I looked at the description is the model is not the target audience. Let's be honest, that girl who's eating that burger is not the average person who actually eats Hardee's burgers. And then the eating of the burger is the focus and not the burger itself, right? And if you are familiar with Hardee's advertisements for the thick burgers, especially back in the day, well, in the 90s, early 2000s, you kind of know what I'm talking about. So then I give you another example using that point-by-point format, and then an example using just a close analysis. Okay, so just to recap before I end this video, your paper is not going to be due for a grade, an essay grade this weekend. Instead, you're going to turn it in. If you turn in a draft with an outline and 3 paragraphs, you get a 100. Please don't miss the opportunity to get that 100. And then I'm going to give you feedback on those drafts, and then next Sunday, you're going to turn in the final paper, okay? If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, give me, or send me an email or whatnot. If you email me on Moodle and it doesn't look like I'm responding to you, check your student email, because sometimes my responses go through to your student email as well. Again, let me know if you have any questions, and if nothing else, happy writing.